Hello there, you're watching World News Program live on All 24 News Channel from the capital Algiers with me, Karim Fasakri. Glad to have you with us tonight. Now, the top stories. Washington says the only realistic way to solve the Western Sahara issue is through direct talks between the parties. A Trump advisor praised the Polisario's position, while Spanish parties warn against undermining the right to self-determination. Also in our news, in Doha, President Abdelmadjid Tebboune stressed that social justice is a key pillar of Algeria's policy. World leaders also highlighted stronger cooperation with Algeria. Coming up as well, in Gaza, more casualties are reported despite the ceasefire. The resistance says it handed over the body of an Israeli prisoner, while the UN warns the Strip is facing one of the worst food crises in the world. And in Sudan, fierce fighting continues. The army accuses the RSF of using civilians as human shields as the UN declares famine in El Fasher and Kordofan and calls for an end to the violence. Full reports are straight ahead. Hello again and welcome back to the details. First up in our news, the senior advisor to the US President on Arab and African Affairs, Massad Boulos, says MINURSO was created for one clear purpose: to organize a self-determination referendum in Western Sahara. Speaking to France 24, he stressed that any move towards self-determination depends on talks between the Polisario Front and Morocco. Boulos added that Washington welcomes any ideas that can help reach a political solution, saying the most realistic way forward is direct dialogue and a mutual agreement between the two sides.
The details of the self-determination process ultimately depend on an understanding between the two parties directly involved, namely the Polisario Front and Morocco. The autonomy plan proposed by Morocco is not the only solution on the table. The latest Security Council resolution did not limit the solution to this proposal, but welcomed all initiatives and ideas that could contribute to reaching a political settlement acceptable to both sides. The realistic path to resolving the conflict lies in dialogue and direct agreement between the parties. The United States encourages all concerned to move towards a comprehensive agreement that guarantees the interests of all.
The senior advisor to the U.S. President on Arab and African Affairs, Massad Boulos, called the Polisario Front stance on recent U.S. moves over Western Sahara positive. Speaking about the initial draft resolution Washington submitted to the UN Security Council, Boulos said the Polisario's reservations were legitimate, adding that the U.S. understands the Front's concerns as part of the ongoing diplomatic process.
The Polisario Front's position was not negative. It was positive and held legitimate reservations. The real problem lies in the preamble of the UN resolution, not in its substance, which keeps all options open for possible peaceful solutions.
And in Spain, several political parties are doubling down on their support for the Sahrawi people. The Communist Party, Sumar, and Podemos renewed calls for Madrid to back a referendum on self-determination, not Morocco's autonomy proposal. They say the Sahrawi people's right to choose their future must be respected and warned that any attempt to undermine the right would go against international law.
50 years after the Moroccan military occupation of Western Sahara, the Sahrawi people are still deprived of their inalienable right to self-determination in a blatant violation of international humanitarian law and numerous United Nations resolutions, as well as the options issued by the International Court of Justice, the Court of Justice of the European Union, and the African Court on Human and People's Rights.
On a similar note, Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune is once again putting the spotlight on the right of peoples to decide their own future, calling it a key pillar of justice and human rights. Speaking on his behalf at the World Summit for Social Development in Doha, The head of the Council of the Nation, Azouz Nasri, said Algeria will stay the course as an active and responsible partner on the global stage. That means backing sustainable development, but always with full respect for national sovereignty and the will of the people.
إن الجزائر وهي تؤكد تمسكها بقيم السلم.
Algeria, while reaffirming its commitment to the values of peace, coexistence and respect for international law, reiterates its support for the right of peoples to self-determination as a fundamental pillar of justice and human rights. In conclusion, Algeria will continue to play its role as an active and responsible partner in international efforts aimed at achieving sustainable development and building a more just, equitable and human world within the framework of respect for national sovereignty and the promotion of international cooperation based on mutual respect.
On the same occasion, Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune says social justice isn't just a slogan, it's at the heart of Algeria's policies. In remarks delivered on his behalf at the Social Development Summit in Doha, President Abdelmadjid Tebboune stressed that protecting vulnerable groups, boosting inclusion and improving quality of life are top priorities. He pointed out two efforts to fight poverty, raise purchasing power and push reforms to tackle employment challenges and secure the country's food supply.
إن الجزائر ومن خلال مشاركاتها اليوم.
Through its participation today, Algeria seeks to highlight its approach to social development, an approach based on national vision that has made social justice, the protection of vulnerable groups, and the promotion of inclusion fundamental pillars of its public policy, in line with the commitments of the 1995 Copenhagen Declaration and the Sustainable Development Goals. This summit is being held in a critical international context that requires all of us to strengthen cooperation and formulate policies aimed at consolidating social justice and safeguarding human dignity.
Algeria's Parliament Speaker Azouz Nasri says ties between Algeria and Qatar are a real example of strong and successful Arab cooperation. Speaking to Qatar news agency at the Social Development Summit, he praised how relations between the two countries keep growing in different fields thanks to the vision of their leaders. Nasri added that Algeria and Doha share the same outlook on sustainable development and Arab unity. In other news, the President of the Republic, Abdelmadjid Tebboune, hosted retired Russian Colonel Andrei Pavlenko, a former demining expert who helped Algeria clear landmines after independence. According to the presidency, Pavlenko played a major role in removing mines planted by French forces during the Liberation War. Algeria has cleared around 9 million mines so far out of an estimated 11 million, with the rest either detonating or causing serious injuries over the years.
New Algeria, I wish you a happy celebration on the occasion of November 1st. Algeria gained its independence thanks to the blood of its martyrs. The new generation will preserve and protect Algeria, just as the previous generation did. Long live Russian-Algerian friendship.
And in diplomatic news, President Abdelmadjid Tebboune met with Azerbaijan's Foreign Minister Yehoun Bayramov and his delegation on Tuesday evening. According to the presidency, the talks were held in the presence of top Algerian officials, including Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf, Presidential Cabinet Director Boualem Boualem, and the President's diplomatic advisor Ammar Abba. The meeting reflects ongoing coordination between Algiers and Baku on regional and international issues.
As part of my visit to your beautiful country, I had the great honor of being received by His Excellency the President. This morning we began fruitful discussions with my colleague and brother, the Minister of Foreign Affairs. We started with a restricted meeting, following by an expanded session. During these talks, we addressed several bilateral issues concerning the relations between Algeria and Azerbaijan that are brotherly and built on mutual support, trust, and respect, in full alignment with the principles of international law. And today, following the consultations we held, we also signed an agreement between Algeria and Azerbaijan concerning the establishment of bilateral economic committee.
Still with Algeria-related news, leaders from around the world have congratulated Algeria on the 71st anniversary of the November 1st revolution, praising its historic struggle and strong regional role. Tunisia's President Kais Saied reaffirmed his commitment to boosting brotherly ties and cooperation with Algeria. Similar messages came from Sudan and Senegal, with their leaders stressing partnership and shared goals. European leaders, including those from Serbia, the Czech Republic, and Italy, also highlighted growing cooperation with Algiers, especially on stability and development. And Pope Leo offered his wishes for peace, prosperity, and unity for the Algerian people. Moving on now to Gaza, the fragile ceasefire was shattered again. Palestinian medical sources say 5 people were killed in strikes on Rafah and Gaza City, and 5 others, including 3 children, were injured when an occupation warplane opened fire east of Gaza Strip. Since early morning, the occupation has carried out heavy airstrikes and shelling across the Strip, while also demolishing homes in the north and south, raising fresh fears about the collapse of the truce and the fate of civilians still trapped on the ground. Hamas's military wing Al-Qassam Brigade says it has located and handed over the body of an Israeli prisoner of war. In a statement, the group explained the body was found during search and excavation operations east of the Shujaiya neighborhood near the Green Line. Al-Qassam says the prisoner was an Israeli soldier killed in earlier fighting, and the handover took place Tuesday evening. And from Doha, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says he is deeply worried about the ongoing ceasefire violations in Gaza. Speaking on the sidelines of the World Summit for Social Development, he stressed that the truce must be respected and called for more urgent humanitarian aid to reach people in the Strip, warning that civilians are still paying the highest price.
One thing that is essential to I'm also deeply concerned about the continued violations of the ceasefire in Gaza. They must stop, and all parties must abide by the decisions of the first phase of the peace agreement.
Meanwhile, the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization is sounding the alarm on Gaza, ranking it among the world's worst food crises for 2024 and 2025, alongside Sudan, Yemen, and Afghanistan. In its latest report, the FAO warns of an unprecedented humanitarian and agricultural disaster, saying the Strip is on the brink of a total collapse. It notes that less than 5% of Gaza's land is still usable for farming and is urging immediate coordinated action to prevent things from getting even worse. The United Nations is calling for immediate access to Gaza's northern border crossings, saying they need to be opened without delay. At a briefing on Tuesday, the World Food Programme said getting food into the Strip remains a major challenge, especially for the north.
We need to get to the 1.6 million people with full rations. We need full access. We need everything to be moving fast. We are in a race against time. The winter months are coming. People are still suffering from hunger, and the needs are overwhelming. So in terms of where we are today, it's few steps forward, but it's not as far as we would like it to be.
Tonight we meet a young Palestinian whose life changed forever behind prison walls. Mahmoud Abu Foul entered occupation custody with hopes of returning home one day. He did, but without his eyesight and without the life he once knew. Here's Yasin Arikti with a report.
On his wheelchair, surrounded by darkness, Mahmoud scrolls through his phone to show a photo of himself as a young man. Full of life, he lost his sight during his detention by the Zionist forces, already missing a leg. Mahmoud says his suffering only got worse when he was held at Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza, where he was tortured until he went blind.
I lost my sight because of the beatings and torture. The hardest part was losing my vision after all suffering I endured. I was beaten on the way to prison and beaten again on the way back. Those who beat us showed no mercy, only hatred. That's when they began demanding medical treatment.
Mahmoud was imprisoned without reason, but he held on to hope even in the darkest of times. One day, the Red Cross came and told the prisoners that some would be released, and Mahmoud was one of them.
Despite everything, I always stay optimistic. Thank God, I never lose hope. I believe that at any moment, any minute, the door could open and we could finally go home. One day the Red Cross came and announced that we were to be released.
His release brought immense joy to his mother, who had been anxiously waiting for him. But that joy turned to heartbreak when she realized her son had lost his sight.
When I went to pick him up, my heart broke for the mothers who had lost their sons before I even saw mine. I kept asking them, 30 buses have passed, where is my son? They took me to the Red Cross headquarters and asked me a few questions. Then a Red Cross employee said, the mother of the blind man has arrived. I was in shock. I said, no, my son is not blind. She replied, I'm sorry, please be strong. It was the greatest shock of my life. I thought my heart would stop from fear. I could never have imagined seeing my son in that condition.
Now living in a makeshift tent, Mahmoud faces huge challenges, a life of disability and deprivation. Still, he's grateful for his freedom and asks for two things: to regain his sight and to see those still imprisoned freed.
Moving on to Sudan now, military sources are accusing the Rapid Support Forces of using civilians as human shields in the city of Bara in North Kordofan. They say the RSF is trying to block the army from moving in and retaking the area, which has been under siege for about a week. Meanwhile, the Sudanese Doctors Network says RSF fighters are even stopping the burial of dozens of bodies left in the streets and inside homes, calling the situation a crime against humanity. A new UN-backed report is sounding the alarm on Sudan's hunger crisis. The latest IPC assessment says famine has spread in El Fasher, in North Darfur, and in Kadugli in South Kordofan. According to the report released on Monday, almost 1 million people in Sudan were already facing severe food insecurity as of last September.